Hey everybody, welcome back. John Malanke with United Patients Group. Be informed and be well. And today I have an old dear friend. I got called on saying an old one time, and it's like, I'm not old. So you know what? How about a longtime friend? Pioneer in this industry, Lynn Mathre. She's an RN, but she and her husband has started an organization 25 years ago, Alburn, called Patients Out of Time. Patients Out of Time. And when I say it's one of the lead, we've done a lot of similar things here at United Patients Group, but Patients Out of Time was where Corinne and I really saw the need for education. And so with that, we've done a lot with Lynn and Al over the years with Patients Out of Time, not only sponsoring, but supporting and really getting the word out. And I've heard many of our followers, many of our guests that I've had on the show knew nothing about cannabis. And these are doctors and nurses. And they went to a Patient Out of Time's event or conference and went jaw dropped and said, oh my gosh, Beth Doss, one of our nurses, that's where she learned about cannabis. Dawn Steenstra also learned about cannabis. The list goes on. Ryan Zachlin, Nigam Maror, Jehan Marcoux. And these are all very well-educated people in this industry, talking about education, talking about the science behind. And so on that introduction, Lynn, awesome to see you, also known as ML. So if you hear me say ML, it is Lynn, but awesome to see you, Lynn.
Great to see you too, John.
So you guys have, you've seen it all. It's funny, people always say, oh, John, you're the pioneer in this industry. I laugh. I said, I'm far from the pioneer. There are people who have been doing this for years, years. You really have really tried to bring the stigma down about cannabis as an edge and talk about education and the benefits. Can you let's talk about, well, before we go on, I want to talk about your conference. ML, share your background because you're a nurse, you're an RN, and you have been leading this way for not only medical professionals, but RNs in this industry too.
Yeah, well, I'm a nurse, as you said, and was getting out of school. I joined the Navy, was stationed in Portsmouth, Virginia, and then down at Roosevelt Roads, Puerto Rico. Was down in Puerto Rico. I met my husband, Alburn, and I got out of the service. He continued on, but so we're both Navy veterans, and we got involved with cannabis. It was in the 80s when drug testing started, and of course, it started with the veterans. With active military. They were the guinea pigs. Remember one time, and this is kind of off story, but there literally was a time when there were train carloads on trains full of urine specimens.
Wow.
From the military, getting them off to be tested. And anyway, that started us, it got us connected with NORML, the National Organization for Marijuana Laws. And this was like in the 80s. And then by 84, 85, he was stationed in, of all places, Cleveland, Ohio, but we got there because I was going to grad school at Case Western. I did my thesis on marijuana disclosure to healthcare professionals. And I thought, okay, we're in 1984. Where am I going to find people who admit to using cannabis? Very difficult. And at that time, I thought marijuana. I only knew to call it marijuana.
It's funny. I was going to correct you just for the record. Lynn educated me back in 2011, 12 about the term marijuana versus cannabis. And because of that, Lynn, I only use the word cannabis.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to go back to marijuana. Yeah. And marijuana, we shouldn't, not that it's a negative thing. It's just that our country made it into a negative thing, created all the stigma about it. But so I wanted to do a survey. And so we thought, we could go through NORML. Probably not, you don't have to use cannabis to belong to NORML, but probably most people did.
Yeah.
Common sense tells you that. So I did that and I got 900 responses. It was a survey on disclosure. Would a person, if they're a physician or a nurse asked about their marijuana use, would they admit to use? And the survey came back. It was very interesting. But the last question on my survey, I got like 900 responses.
Were these also enlisted servicemen and women, or are they?
Normal. So this is NORML's population. In the old days, before the internet, so go back in time, before the internet, they have a leaflet. Every month or every 2 months, they'd send out the leaflet, which was news on cannabis, on marijuana. And so they put it in, it was the last page, a tear off on their leaflet that they could then mail into NORML. NORML would mail it to me. So patients felt that it would all be confidential, and the agreement was that I would let Normal know the results so that they could tell the members. So it was all happy. The last question I asked was, and the answer to the whole survey was, most were never asked by their healthcare professionals. If they were asked, over half said that they would admit to use because they thought that the healthcare professional should know about that. Yeah. But those who wouldn't said, it'll be on my record. They've got an attitude towards me. I could get into legal trouble. It was all worries about the stigma related to it and the legal consequences, that they would be afraid to admit it. But my last question was, what are your health concerns about cannabis? And they could choose, its effects on my brain, on my lungs, on my heart, all the way through, and saying fetus for pregnant women.
Yeah.
And other. And people started writing in an other. I use it for multiple sclerosis. I'm a spinal cord injured patient, and it really helps with my spasticity.
So they actually wrote in the other what their issue was, what their ailment.
They were basically saying, I'm not worried. And they'd say, and they could say, no concerns at all, even though I'm a moderate user, or no concerns, even though I'm a heavy user. And people would check that, and then they'd go down other and write in. And I was like, I knew it was good for chemo-induced nausea and vomiting. I knew patients used it back then. And I heard about glaucoma, but these other things were like, I was just I'm reading this and kind of going, oh my goodness. So then I started reading. I found out about cannabis and the whole history there. And then Normal was very pleased with the results. So they asked me if I would be the director of their Council on Marijuana and Health.
And so when I present, I always have a roll of duct tape on the slide. And many of my audience has heard this, but the people in the audience look at my duct tape slide. They look at me like, hey, wrong slide. And I always laugh. I said, I have that up there because I don't want to say cannabis is like duct tape with 1,000,001 uses. But when you really get down to it, you'd be surprised on just how we sat there at your conference. Someone's, talking about diabetes, cancer, ALS, tumors. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And I know you agree with me as well. It's not the golden pill, the golden ticket, the Willy Wonka, chocolate golden ticket. But at least let patients have an option. Right. Let them have an option. You and I have both seen it work, and we've both seen it not work. And, and definition to me is saving a life. And definition for others is end of life care. You help my loved one pass on. They weren't in a drugged out stupor, and we were able to converse with them. They weren't constipated from all the medications. Help them with pain, help them with sleep, help them with nausea. And so that's really something that you and Al have really solidified in this industry.
And we broke it up to the point that we're starting out with the state of the laws of cannabis laws and regulations. And it's not going to be nitty gritty each state, but try to help people understand the problems we have with the federal law, federal prohibition, the state laws all differing, et cetera, problems with veterans, with minorities, and those issues. The state of clinical of cannabis research, and this is talking about just the hurdles people have to go through to get research done, and the problems we still have because the way the government allows us to do research is using NIDA cannabis, and NIDA cannabis is nowhere near what patients are using, not close.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that, state of cannabis education, what's happening with nursing schools, med schools, et cetera, which is a sad case, but there's some good news we're going to have with that. That's on Thursday. Then on Friday, it's the state of the science and really trying to bring people up on the science there. And, I should probably cheat and even take a look. I got to check my schedule here too.
But your speakers, I mean, that's the one thing that you and Al have built a reputation in our community, in our industry. So for the pioneers, I will say, you have some incredible speakers. Ethan Russo, just right there. Bonnie Goldstein, who is wonderful. She's been on the show. Deb Kimless has spoken when Kurt and I did our conference in Maryland, and you were there you were speaking as well. Patricia Fry, who been on the show, and I've done a lot of work with her over the years. Greg Gerdeman. The list goes on. Sue Sicily, who am I missing here? Zuba Cooper, who I just did something with MCRA with. Dustin Sulak. Didi Mary.
Yeah, Didi Mary from Israel.
He does an incredible, presentation. Is he still doing autism as well, or what will he be speaking on this time?
I think a little bit of everything, but cancer. I know he's going to do some.
Cancer, okay. Is anybody speaking on pancreatic this year?
Not that I know of specifically.
Yeah.
Might come up in the general.
Yeah.
And another one, Stacy Gruber, who's just a
She's
real
wonderful.
champion.
Oh gosh, yeah. I've done things with her in the past, and then the list goes on. And I love it because it's coming in from the 100% medical side, and so this is not only for medical professionals but for the public as well. And now being online, you don't have to travel. I'm kind of getting used to this, but I do miss the camaraderie that we have at the events. And for our listeners, I emceed the, what was it, 2017, 2018 in New Jersey. Was it 2017 or 2018?
2018.
2018. And so and I talk about you on my show all the time. And it's something that I truly believe any medical professional, whichever side of the fence they're on, will come away with a different understanding and a real understanding about the benefits of this plant.
And then we find out about the endocannabinoid system, which is involved in probably everything. You mentioned Vincenzo DiMarzo, probably the most prolific researcher and writer on the endocannabinoid system from Italy. And in the mid 1998 or something, one of his articles, he talked about the endocannabinoid system in that it helps us eat, sleep, relax, protect, and forget. And it's like, wow. And from that, we're all saying it's involved in almost every physiological reaction that's going on in our body. It is so important. So the idea that this still is not in every medical school, in every nursing school, is a crime. And even if it's not in basic biology classes, in high school, when you're learning about the human body and you learn about the circulatory system and the skeletal system and the pulmonary system, where's our endocannabinoid system? We've got to get it in so people understand. Because there's things you can do. We've learned about yoga helps with the endocannabinoid system. Meditation can help. Acupuncture, that's kind of stimulating the endocannabinoid system. Clearly what we eat. And I had said earlier about the hemp seed oil or cannabis seed from either plant's going to be good. But having hemp sprouts from the plant, or baby leaves, putting them in salads. That's your green leafy vegetable.
Green. Yeah.
And then, of course, you juice them when it's an older leaf because they get a little bitter. But, and that's, I think, for the listeners, that's nothing psychoactive. That's think of it as a vegetable because that's exactly what it is. Those cannabinoids are in acid form. They're not going to be getting you high or stoned, but giving you a lot of nutrition.
When we shared that education with Corinne's father, when he was going through it, he just looked at us and he said, why hasn't someone sued the U.S. government for murder? And we said, wow, coming from him, he was such a humble man. I was like, wow. And we did an article on that, and it got a lot of coverage. And it was more so of how they have it scheduled, federally one scheduled, no medical benefits, but at the same time, patent neuroprotected as medical benefits. And it's like, take your pick, guys. Take your pick. And that's frustrating. And that's the part that when I was sharing earlier about, at least let patients have an option, and not being for them is what I was saying. Okay. I don't want to get cannabis. I'm like my grandfather. I don't want to be, drugs. And that was his mindset. And so and I share with people all the time because a lot of families call and say, my loved one won't try this. And I said, Bill or Sue, it's not your journey, and you can't please at the end of life. They're scared, they're desperate, they're weak, and so don't force it. And if sometimes it helps when you share a story, because people will say, what do I do? I said, share a story. And they come back and they see another person that looks like them, if it's a senior male or a woman or a man or a kid, and go, I'd like to try that. And so sometimes it takes an outsider. Like I have friends from high school that say, man, I can't thank you enough. My mom's using cannabis because of you. And I said, what did I do? He's like, well, she watched your show or your mom said something, but we've been trying to get her to do it for years. And sometimes it takes an outsider to share. And so bringing it back to your conference, if I'm going to guarantee, I'll say guarantee this, but if you watch this conference, if you don't get something out of this conference, Marilyn will refund you.
Yeah. I can say that, yeah.
But that's how much confidence I have in the education and the information that is. I mean, people walk out of there going, how is that even possible that I did not learn this in medical school or nursing school, or how come I've never heard of this? And you be blown away. And the list of speakers, like you said, used to do 2 days, and this is a 3 day. So the list of speakers is incredible. When I saw the agenda, not only of the topics, but also the speakers, I'm like, you know what? That's called being a pioneer in the industry and say, hey, would you like to speak? Heck yeah. What day do you want me, ML? And so for our audience, if you really look at that list of speakers, those are the tops in this industry that have really looked at this as a therapeutic. Cannabinoids are therapeutic, but I think you'll just blown away. And on the topics, and then you can find not only the agenda, but the list of speakers on patientsoutofTime.com. For our medical professionals that are watching, because it is accredited, how many accreditation units or credits are they getting? Will they receive?
15.5. So yes, thank you. We just
Is it a CME or CE or CEU?
CMEs. Pharmacists will get it, and the nurses can use the CMEs. So it's 15.5 contact hours. So we're really happy about that.
Yeah. And are they PRA category 1?
Yep, category 1.
So the top of the top, and so again, not surprised, but Mary Lynn and Al do everything with not only a class act, but the top of the top to get this information out, and they do an incredible job with that as well. When they do this, will they be able to go? Because you did say that they would be able to go watch, and so it's almost like on demand where I can watch, a couple speakers here next week. Watch. Yeah. And do they have access for a full year with that, or how does that work?
No, it's going to be about a month. But cool. Okay. What we got is so in watching it, what you're going to get live. I mean, it's going to be taped presentations to an extent, but at the end of each of these sessions, the speakers are there for the Q&A. And so obviously being live, you want to get the Q&A. So a person might look at the schedule and say, oh, I don't have time for that topic or something, and know that you can take that link and get back to it later and see it later. But we hopefully especially get there for the Q&A, so you'll have a chance to interact with the speakers and ask whatever question, might be of concern. Of course, people will have the chance to put the questions in on the side, and so we'll have somebody monitoring questions and gathering them all for everybody. So, if there's one other thing I'd like to bring up,
please.
So, please, people, think about the conference, and for a lot of you, if you're not a healthcare professional, bug the heck out of your own healthcare professional to come take it, because they need to understand this, and not just for you, for all of their patients. When you have something that literally governs your whole body, and you've got a clinician who doesn't know that science, they're really missing the boat. I mean, there's just too many reasons that they need to understand this. But the other thing I want to bring up is we have a petition, a resolution, I guess I should say, but it's to deschedule cannabis. So if you go to the website, you'll find this descheduling petition. I think it's about 4 pages long. So it's the old fashioned writing of whereas cannabis is an ancient plant, whereas cannabis, is non-toxic, no overdoses. And it just goes on about different facts about cannabis, just explaining all this, that the resolve is, be it resolved that the government needs to take it out of Schedule 1, deschedule this cannabis, free the plant, get all people who are charged with possession or growing cannabis out of prison, allow veterans to use it and the VA to cover that expense for them. So it's that sort of resolution. We've got a lot of organizations who've signed on to it. I can't remember, last I looked, maybe 127 or something organizations.
I think we signed on it. United Patients Group was on that list.
Yes. So. and now we're looking for individuals as well. We just want this living and keep growing it and people can download it and just use it to educate your representative. It's
funny. I have now a dear friend, but they contacted us. They're from Georgia and they became cannabis refugees. They moved out to California. Sawyer's mom. So we've had Sawyer Maddox and he had Deuce syndrome, and Deuce syndrome is another rare epileptic seizure where he was having 200, 300 seizures a day. He'd wear a helmet, Pillsbury Doughboy puffy with all the medications. And make a long story short, they tried cannabis before becoming a cannabis refugee. They came out, they tried, they met with a doctor, but I'll be darned. And so they said, let's do it. And Sawyer's mom and dad left their work, left their jobs. Sawyer's mom is a nurse, so she found a position out here. And he hasn't had a seizure, I want to say, in 5 years. And he is top of his class. He's running around with his brother's sister. He's playing baseball. He's riding. He's falling. He's jumping. He's doing everything. And it's beautiful to see that. But I remember before they left Georgia, his doctor, he comes in there and the doctor says, there's not enough proof. And his dad says, look at my son. Do you see any bruises on him? Do you see him with that helmet on? Do you see how all the puffiness? No. It's working. So I think that's enough proof to show you that this plant does have some benefits, because I have received my son back, and it's a beautiful story, and they become dear friends, and it's just wow. And so, like I said, it has so many benefits, and again, not for everyone, as you just said as well, but at least be open-minded. And for our medical professionals, this is an event that I truly believe that you will get a lot out of. And with everyone asking about cannabis nowadays, why not be the leader in your community when it comes to knowing about medication? Because I always share, it's not illegal to ask the question, even if you live in a legal or illegal state. Maybe different in different countries. But in here in America, it's not illegal to ask that question too. And so anyway, but Mary Lynn, it's always a pleasure working with you, seeing you. And I'm excited about your 14th National Clinical Conference on Cannabis Therapeutics, State of the Science, on May 20th to 22nd, 2021. You can find Mary Lynn and her organization, Patients Out of Time. Proud to say I'm a board member and a supporter of every one of their conferences, and proud to be a friend as well. And so thank you, ML, for everything you've done for Corinne and I, as with Corinne and I, and what you're doing here to better this information on this plant.
Again, folks, this plant is the plant is for everyone.
Yeah.
The medicine may or may not help you, but that plant is for everyone, and it Mother Earth needs this plant back. I was just coming in here on NPR. They're trying to tell people we need to grow more trees, for the planet, and just talking about the whole deal there. And somebody the other day was just telling me about how many trees they use, in terms of the toilet paper issue that we're now. And you're thinking, hemp can replace so much of that, and it's a shame. We got to end the stigma. It's a wonderful.
And I was say that what's holding back is a stigma. What is holding back is a stigma. And I can tell you, my mom and her church friends are helping bring that stigma down. And so she supports everything we do. But anyway, ML, always a pleasure having you on, and thank you, and excited for your upcoming conference. And we'll have all that information. And for our audience, I really hope that you do tune in, because you'll come away with your mouth hitting the floor going, wow, I did not know that. So anyway, Lynn Mathre from Patients at a Time, John Malanka, United Patients Group, be informed and be well, and we'll see you all soon. Have a blessed day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.